Hey guys, welcome back to the pod. I am here with Darien this week. Say hi, Darien. Say what's up. So this week I had somebody else scheduled and lined up and everything, but they had something else come up and we had to postpone it to another week. And so I have Darien here, which actually, she's not a plan B, by the way. I wanted to have her on, but actually works out really well because this Wednesday, a couple days after this podcast goes out, is actually Valentine's Day. So we're gonna get to hear from my Valentine and all of that. So yeah, Darien, I don't know if you want to say hi or say anything.
Hello, I'm very nervous.
Darien's very nervous. She doesn't like being in front of the camera and all of that. In fact, for the thumbnail for this video, it was hard to find even just a picture of her. I had to go down like months and months and months to just find a picture. So even her doing this is part of a miracle. So
True.
maybe we'll get into that. JK. Also, I said I'd give them a shout out. So this is Coffee Fusion that I'm drinking. So if you're from the Valley, 956, check out their Instagram, Coffee Fusion. They sell coffee, tea, syrups, all that kind of coffee shop kind of thing, kind of stuff. So anyways, because it's Valentine's Day, I thought we would start off with a game that tests our knowledge and love of each other. Maybe not love. That tests our knowledge of each other. So we did this off screen. We answered a series of questions. We're gonna see who answered the most questions correctly, and whoever answered the most questions correctly is gonna be treated to a date. So loser has to plan the date, has to pay for the date and everything, which I'm the only one who works, so it's all coming out of the same account. But it keeps it interesting that way. So here's the first question, and Darien, you can turn in your notebook to the ones that you think I answered.
What?
So the first question is, what is the other person's favorite food? So this is my favorite food.
Favorite dessert.
Favorite dessert, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
favorite dessert.
Yeah.
So ready? 1, 2, 3.
What?
Oh, it's backwards on the screen, but I put ice cream. She put pecan pie. That is incorrect. That is incorrect. So no points to Darien. No points to Darien. So the second question is, what is the other person's dream vacation? This has been true for the past 20 years, so there is no chance she got this wrong.
Uh-oh.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Not beach. I put Australia.
I almost put that, but I thought, what's gonna be said is this. I'm gonna say, your dream vacation is Australia. You'd be like, no, I want to move there. And then I was gonna be like, well, but the second best option is vacation, and
see
you know
that.
that. And
I can see that.
so-
Unfortunately, that's wrong, and you don't get a point. So Australia is and forever will be my dream destination. And yes, I would like to live there one day. It's basically Texas, but it's somewhere else, and they have kangaroos.
It's not fresh. His
Next.
ideal temperature is fresh. Okay.
Best date y'all have been on. This one was hard. We both struggled. We've been on a lot of dates. So this one was hard. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I put saltgrass. Oh, for saltgrass, you got that. Okay, 1 point, Darien.
I did say disclaimer, I hope I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong.
That would have been a peak like within 3 months.
Yeah, it's true. We went to a saltgrass date like 3 months into dating, and it was perfect and excellent and amazing. We've had a lot of great dates since, but this one's special in my heart. So saltgrass stays winning.
Wow, I find point.
Yeah, and by the way, we are gonna go back and hear Darien's answers after this so we can tally my points. So these are my answers. Okay, what is the one thing the other person cannot live without? Creatine. Ooh, I put gym/meat because it's all about the gains, but creatine is a supplement that's for the gains, so it's all in the same
And if you
field.
miss a day, it's
Yeah, if I miss a day, it's panic. Man, I think I'm gonna give it to you because it's the same general idea. Health and fitness. I can't live without it. I'm gonna give you a point. That's 2 points, Darien. Okay. If your house was on fire, what is the one thing your spouse would grab before leaving the house? Our son, not included. Laptop. Yeah, laptop. That's 3. I'm very impressed with you. That's 3.
all about the
Laptop.
logistics.
Yeah, laptop. I'm working on a dissertation right now, and if I lose my laptop, oh my goodness, I lose quite a bit of work. So
Maybe we should also back that up.
we should back that up. We should. I don't have it backed up, and that's probably
DTS gives you the
they do. So
Mhm.
I'll have to do that. Wow, 3. Not bad. Okay. Which of your spouse's housekeeping habits drive you the most crazy?
very curious about this.
I put. What does it say? Laundry on bed at
I
night.
forgot.
Okay, Darien does leave the laundry in bed at night sometimes.
We just have
But
to move
no,
it.
Darien moves everything around. Everything. And then when I ask her, where is this thing? She's like, I don't know. And then I find it somewhere and she's like, oh yeah, I put it there so that, and she has this great idea, but she can't remember it. Case in point, I was looking for my camera that I record this thing from, my little cheapy camera. And I told her, I think it's still in the car. And she was like, probably. So I went to go look in the car and it wasn't there. Turns out she had brought it inside and put it towards the front door. Anyways, she
Yeah.
moves everything around
It's true.
and
You're
it
right.
creates chaos sometimes. Okay, last question. What is the other person's favorite show? So this is my favorite
This
show.
is scary.
3, 2, 1.
What?
What? Survivor? Well, that's a good guess. Oh, sorry. This is Darian's notebook for school.
What? Well. Oh, it's a little
Naruto.
dummy. I forgot
Naruto.
about
I thought that was an easy one. Okay,
No, it
so
was.
Darian got
Sorry.
3 out of 7,
I'm
and now we're
sorry.
gonna see if I can beat her. Which, by the way, we've played a game like this before in the past.
Not as detailed.
Well, we played a game like this before in the past, and I would answer the correct answer, and she would put the wrong one for herself. She would say, "What's my favorite color?" And I'd say lavender, which is true. But that day she was feeling orange for some reason, and she would say it's orange when we all know it's lavender. And then afterwards she'd be like, "No, yeah, you're right." So
He's much more decisive about.
I might lose, but not because I don't know her well. Anyways, all
Let's
right.
see.
What is Darian's favorite dessert? 1, 2, 3. Chocolate cake. Easy money. 1 point. What is the other person's dream vacation? Ready?
Yep.
Germany?
Euro tour.
Euro tour. Okay. Same genre, kind of like creatine.
Yeah.
That's another point for me.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. By the way, that's a sausage, a German sausage.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, best date y'all have ever been on? Carla Morrison. It's a concert we went to a couple of months back in July. More than a couple months. Goodness. That's 3 points. We're already tied.
Oh no.
Carla Morrison. All right.
Oh, I'm worried about what you're gonna put for this one.
What is the one thing the
Give me
other
a
person
second.
cannot live without? Gym.
I can't live without the gym.
Snuggles.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I didn't get that one. I thought it was Jim. That's your 1 hour without Diego. But
Well,
all right.
It's just, it's true. It does bring me a lot of sanity. I
Okay.
just don't think of myself as that kind of person.
If your house was on fire, what is the one thing your spouse would grab before leaving the house? Diego not included. Memory box?
Yeah, baby box.
Baby box. 4.
Good job.
And for
Good
anyone
dad.
keeping score, I have already won, but we're gonna finish the question so we can see how high I can go.
Ugh.
All right. Which of your spouse's housekeeping habit drives you the most crazy? Lazy dish. I put that I leave clothes everywhere. Once I've used them, like I just leave my socks around, my shirts around, just everything.
That's terrible too. There
By the
were
way,
about
the-
3 things in strong competition.
The lazy dish, for anyone wondering, when I do the dishes, it doesn't matter how many there are. There's 600 dishes. I'll do 599 of them, but I'll always leave one. And it's the most annoying dish that I don't want to do. Like the dish that has all of the stuff that you have to scrape out. I always leave that one because I don't even know why. I think I did it as a
started
joke
like
once
a long time ago.
when we first got married. I think I did it as a joke and then it kind of just stuck around. So the lazy dish, I always leave one dish. If there's only 2 dishes, I leave one always.
Really?
I don't know. I feel like it's true. Maybe not though. And then the last one, what is the other person's favorite show? And if she answers anything but this, she's lying.
I don't know.
She's lying.
Oh gosh, I've lost my page. Hold
Okay, we're gonna let her find her page.
on. I don't know if I'm lying. Okay, I'm sorry.
Unless it's Gilmore Girls, then I'll forgive her. 3, 2, 1. New Girl.
Oh, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. Okay, no, that's a
They're
good
the
answer.
same kind of level.
Yeah, okay. Parks and Rec. Well, I only got 4 out of 7, and you got 3 out of 7.
It was closer than we thought.
So it
Granted, I'm
really
very
was.
indecisive as a person.
It really was. But that means you owe me a date. So
Congratulations.
I will keep all of our following updated on what this date will be, and it better blow my socks off. I want it to be the best date ever.
Beat Saltgrass from 4 years
To
ago.
beat Saltgrass from 4 years ago, you have a $14 budget. Because February 14th.
Okay.
Happy Valentine's Day. You want to share with them what we're doing for Valentine's Day?
Nothing.
We're doing pretty much nothing. Because I'll be away on a beach retreat, living it up. Just kidding. I have a work thing that week from Monday through Wednesday. And then Wednesday we get back in the afternoon, but I have church in the evening. So we will be doing probably nothing unless you want to go to dinner
February
after.
15th.
We could do February 15th. It's true. There's plenty of days, but on the 14th, we likely won't get to do anything. So very unfortunate.
Okay.
Anyways, well, welcome to All Church Potluck. This is Darien. She's going to be our guest today, telling us things about her life and her journey and her ministry and all these great things that she has to share. So Darien, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody more formally? Tell us about your education and your ministry background, your spiritual journey, all that kind of stuff. You can see you're turning red already. Go ahead,
A lot
babe.
to cover.
Yeah, and try to do it in 2 minutes.
Okay, so my name is Darien. Right now I'm a student at DTS. That is how Victor and I met a bajillion years ago, and I'm about to graduate, hopefully. I'm studying counseling, and sorry, I'm just trying to keep my track on the. So I'm studying counseling. I before that studied philosophy in my undergrad, and
Where did you study?
the now deceased King's College in New York City, which was in many ways a very great experience. Super fun. And now I get to also say that I lived in New York.
It's true.
And
no
for
one
4
else,
years.
no one else can have that experience anymore of going to King's because it's completely shut down. So
it's over.
it's
At
over.
least for now.
You were one of the last few.
That was I went during its second life. So I guess there's some inkling that there could be a third life yet for this school, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
But yes, that was my undergrad. I spent a year, I traveled to Germany and I just worked. And then I came back and I went to DTS. And yeah, so that's been the past 5 years. It's been in Texas. I don't know what else.
Well, what's your spiritual background? You grew up Catholic and then you transitioned to the Church of Christ, a leader of Latter-day Saints. No?
That would be very dramatic.
Yeah.
I did have a very diverse denominational background. Let's see, I think I was, I don't know where I was when I was a baby, but I can remember being at non-denominational churches, Methodist, Baptist, multiple Presbyterian. And since we met, another non-denom, Anglican, Pentecostal, essentially. I don't know how to.
Yeah. Charismatic, Pentecostal.
Charismatic, and now evangelical free. So I feel like that's been an interesting aspect of my background that I can underrate sometimes because I have a lot of random experiences.
What was your favorite denomination?
Anglican or Presbyterian?
Okay, I'm gonna tell Pastor Ruben that. That's okay.
I have definitely enjoyed our last 6 months.
Why were they your favorite?
Well, for one thing, the Presbyterian church that I grew up in, that I spent most of my adolescence in, was just, I felt very comfortable there. I think I just felt very at home there, so that just gave me a positive impression anyway.
Shout out to Pastor Rob in Lenore, North Carolina.
And then let's see. Sorry. What was the question? What's my favorite denomination?
Why?
So I don't know if that really has to do with its Presbyterianness. However, I guess I did really like the fact that we did a catechism class. We were pretty, I think compared to a lot of other high schoolers or teenagers in that area, probably more theologically invested in. So I thought I really appreciated that as kind of a intellectually thirsty high schooler.
Yeah. What did catechism look like in a Presbyterian church?
Let's see. So I don't think it was as, so it happened older than for your catechism class that you guys were talking about last week. I think we did it, if you were in 7th to 9th grade, they had a class every 2 years or something like that. So whenever you got to that range and the cycle came, your term came, whatever, 7th, 8th, or 9th grade. And then you just spent a semester during the Sunday school hour. We had like special lessons going through like specific Presbyterian doctrine, like learning about the leadership and like what is being Presbyterian specifically, and then also just general theological concepts. But there was a mentor. You were assigned a mentor who was an elder that you guys met a couple times during the semester, and they kind of just like got to know you a little bit and see like if you had any questions, or kind of made themselves available to you. And then at the end of the semester, you had your, like, I don't even know, there was a sort of ceremonial introduction to the congregation, as these are the confirmands. Oh, we went through the Westminster Catechism.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, that was kind of a big one. We were,
What is the chief end of man, Darien?
glorify God and enjoy him forever. We were, what's it called? Challenged, I guess. There was like a bet given to us by Pastor Rob that if any of us memorized the entire catechism, he would give us $100.
I remember this.
Yeah, I
Did you do it?
tried. I
Nerd.
got to like the 10 Commandments and I was like, these are gonna be easy, and I ended there. It was probably halfway.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
pretty
good.
long, but it was long.
Do you still remember it?
No. I should say, whenever I'm reading it like now, I'm like, this is very familiar language to me.
Okay.
That I can maybe finish a sentence, but that was like 15 years ago.
We're old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our youth is behind us. Our
So-
youth is behind us. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So what took you to DTS, Dallas Seminary?
Mostly the counseling program, because I was looking at different seminaries. You don't have to, not to, I guess, discount my education or the quality of my institution, but at seminaries, they don't make you take the GRE. Is that the grad school entrance exam? Yeah. And I was just not up for that. I was like, if I don't have to do that. And then there was the fact that I could get the biblical, like, or theological extra, like, education. I thought that would be pretty cool. So I was looking around at different seminaries, and some of them had like 4 classes, some of them had like 1 class in theology. And then DTS had a whole 30 hours. And I thought that sounded really cool. And then their actual counseling program seemed more robust. I was looking through the course map and everything and thinking, I feel like some of these classes I should be seeing on other schools' course maps, and I'm not. So I applied, and I never had gone there before. And then August I moved there.
Oh.
So it was there was a short list, and I don't know, it just made sense. The other thing is, I did have an elder from my church who was a DTS grad, though I really didn't know that about him until I think somebody mentioned it when I said I'm looking for a seminary. And I was like, oh, I actually really appreciate, respect this person. Maybe I should look.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And your program is 90 hours.
yes.
So in the time that you have been at DTS, with the same hours, you could have gotten 3 other master's degrees. How does that feel hearing that?
I could be well into my associate hours right now if I had chosen another school.
But you don't regret it.
But I don't regret it, because then I wouldn't have you or Diego, or who knows what else, there could just be, you just
This
try not to
dress,
think about this dress, which
this book, all sorts of stuff.
I don't know. It's just, you try not to think about that.
Okay, moving on. So Wednesday, a couple days after this podcast or this episode goes live, is Valentine's Day. So I thought we would give a little bit, or I would give a little bit of history on who Saint Valentine's Day is. Who Saint Valentine's Day is. Who Saint Valentine, who Saint Valentine is. So essentially he was a 3rd century saint. And that's pretty much all we know about him. That's it. Yeah. No one knows if it was 1 person, 10 people, 30 people, 2 people. No one knows. It's just attributed to this 1 person, Saint Valentine, and little is known of him. That's in Vatican II, actually, the Catholic Church got rid of Saint Valentine's Day as part of the church calendar because he was too ambiguous And not that we're Catholic, but that's how little people know about Saint Valentine, is that he became kind of this figure that was like, well, we don't know too much about him. I don't know if we should have a feast day for him. I'm still greatly respected in the Catholic Church, though, whoever he was, greatly respected. So that was him. And there's a bunch of stories about why it's centered around love, his whole February 14th. And one of the stories is that he was going around and he was marrying couples when he wasn't supposed to. There was a Roman edict that says there shall be no married people because they were at war, Rome was. And the emperor, Claudius something, said, it's better for men to be single when they're at war so they're not distracted thinking about their wives, which I think is maybe the opposite, right? Because if you have something to live for or people at home waiting for you, maybe you're more like, I got to stay alive for them. I'm sure it doesn't matter either way. I think they're going to want to preserve their lives anyways. But he made it illegal to be married so that the soldiers could be fully committed to the war. And Saint Valentine said, no, this is wrong. God has commanded people to be married, to be fruitful and to multiply. So I'm going to keep doing it. And there's a story that he kept marrying couples and defying the emperor. And the emperor got him and had him murdered, essentially, had him killed. So that's the story of Saint Valentine. And that happened on February 14th, which is why Valentine's Day is on February 14th. That's the day
he died.
on the day that he died. That's the day that they picked on his death day. Not his birthday, on his death day.
Yeah, I'd rather at least like the day of his first wedding.
Yeah. There's another story where he was in prison and one of the prison guards was like, hey, and he was proselytizing in prison, and the prison guard said, hey, if this is all real, heal my daughter, she's blind. And he laid hands on her and she was able to see, and it was miraculous and amazing, and they believed, and it was great. And the emperor heard about this, brought him in, challenged him, and eventually found great favor with the emperor. But the emperor, because he was breaking the law, had to sentence him to death anyways. So he was going to die that way. And before he died, it is said that he wrote a little letter to the girl who he had opened the eyes for, or God had, but he worked through Saint Valentine, and it said something, 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 be of good courage and strength from your Valentine. And that's where the little cards that you probably did in elementary school or whatever came from. To my Valentine, from your Valentine. It was from that letter that he wrote for that person who was blind before he died. Why is that funny?
Just wanted to think about how far Valentine's cards have come.
Yes, well, that was the next thing that I have here on the agenda. Valentine's Day has lost all of its spiritual value, essentially. It has become highly commoditized, very corporate. Hallmark has taken over and it's become cheesy. And if you're, in a relationship, it's all about buying the chocolates and getting this and taking her on a date and getting the flowers and spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars to show her you love her. If you're not in a relationship, it's about the 50% off chocolate the next day or the next couple of days. And either way, highly commercialized, has lost all of its spiritual value. Originally, it was meant to be a remembrance of this great man of God who sacrificed so much for the cause of marriage and the cause of love and the cause of the Christian faith. And then America came in its capitalist way and said, buy Hershey's shaped like hearts.
Or send your roommates a text Valentine that says, you Barack my world.
You Barack Obama my world, yes.
That was what I did.
Yeah, we watched Mean Girls yesterday, and they have that scene where they're sending the Christmas cane grams or whatever, and everybody gets one except for, what's her name? Not Gretchen. It is? Okay. Yeah. Everybody gets one except Gretchen and gets super jealous, and just, that's not Valentine's Day, but how far this holiday has come from what it originally was. So anyways, I don't know if you want to comment on that. I kind of just word vomited the little I know about St. Valentine.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say I remember that much. I remember we listened to An Adventures in Odyssey or something like that.
I don't know what that is.
I'll explain it to you later. But
okay.
Dang, now I'm distracted to tell the people, but it's just a kids radio show like a Christian kids radio show that used to be very well done. Anywho, they did one. I was like, I know I heard this story before, and they did it like a narrative acting out situation, but I could not remember it except that he was marrying people who had been told they couldn't get married. That's all. And yeah,
Yeah.
you Barack my world.
You Barack
That's
my world.
favorite Valentine ever. It's just it just came from this, I don't know, good season of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Hit everybody with your favorite pickup line.
I don't have. What do I have one?
Do you like Legos?
See, you have
You're supposed to say yes. Do you like Legos?
yes, sort of.
Well, I like Legos too. Let's build a relationship.
Yeah.
Feel free to use that one. It always works.
Yeah.
The evidence
No.
is in the pudding. So anyways, I forgot what I was gonna ask you. I had a question. It was unrelated to this, but for anyone listening, Valentine's Day is in a couple days. So think about Saint Valentine, think about his sacrifice, his martyrdom, what he stood for, the Christian faith, his apologetic nature, and all of those kinds of things. And if you listen to this after Saint Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day is coming up, and it's about more than beer. So look into St. Patrick. He's got an awesome story as well. Anyways, Darien, what is love?
I'm gonna quote you if I can.
Yeah,
Though I don't know who
you quoting me is probably quoting someone else.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Because
quoting.
I have no original thoughts in my body.
Oh no, let's see. It's choosing for the highest good of the other person unselfishly.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what C.S. Lewis says. That's just
Okay.
a copy and
I
paste
was like, I couldn't remember if it was
plagiarism
Tim
of.
Keller or C.S. Lewis.
Honestly, it's
But I
probably
know
both
you
of
at
them.
least.
It's probably both of them
Yeah.
because Keller also stole a lot. Stole is the wrong word. Also borrowed much from C.S. Lewis.
Mhm.
Yes, love is unselfishly choosing for the highest good of another individual as highly as it can be attained.
Mm.
So that's a good answer. Well
Thank
done.
you. Thank
Well
you.
done. How do you see that as a contrast in what is commonly defined as love now?
I mean, I think the fact that it's unselfish and for somebody else would be the two key factors. I mean, I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man, but it is at least, I would say, I don't know, maybe I don't feel very in touch with like normal people dating, but maybe something will come to me as I'm thinking about it out loud. But in terms of like watching like, I guess, popular culture play out on like, you know, like media, that kind of thing. It seems like people are very interested in like finding somebody to make them happy, and which is not in itself like something you just aren't after at all. Like we want to be happy together, but usually that involves less of just like a natural occurrence and more of like a lot of caring about each other purposefully and giving a lot and being very, I don't know, just like even I'm training for prepare and rich certification and thinking about all of the like actual logistics that have to occur in a relationship to make people happy. Like you have to be very intentional about the way you speak to each other and the way that you have conflict and the way you make decisions and things like that. There are actual like scientifically proven methods to make you happier and to make you want to be together. So it's not that you can't want to be together or shouldn't want to be together. It's just that it takes a lot more than just kind of like, wow, this person really makes me happy right now. And it's just their natural way of being, and it's my natural way of being with them. Because that's just, probably not going to last, given the way that we naturally fall into relating with each other in the long run. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. For anyone watching, I watch a fair bit of just random stuff on YouTube. And one of the things that I was watching today was the Whatever podcast. If you're familiar with the Whatever podcast, it's terrible. The podcast itself is very well done, and they sometimes have great speakers, but for the most part, they have a variety of OnlyFans models who are talking about dating and love and all of those things. And obviously, this is not representative of the whole, but I think there is some truth in this, that people are just looking for ways to please themselves in relationships, it feels like. And this might not be true of everyone all the time. And I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man either, but I am a grumpy old man is a thing. So I'm just going to lean into it, and it is what it is, whatever. No pun intended. But it seems like a lot of people are, if you ask them, what are you looking for? It's like, well, I'm looking for someone who is, and actually there are videos of this where they ask people, what are you looking for? I want someone who's 6'6", he's got to make six figures, he's got to be with this particular abs, he's got to be this skin color, he's got to be this eye color, he's got to be this, he's got to drive this model of car this year and after, and they give this list, and then the person puts it in an app. And it's like, okay, well, you're talking about 0.1% of the world population. And it seems like expectations
Mhm.
are not realistic.
Mhm.
And I wonder if you have a theory, a hypothesis on why that might be, why expectations are just so high, not high, are so unrealistic. And this, I don't think that this is just something that is true of just a small minority of people. I think there's a lot of people that are looking for person X, but person X doesn't really exist.
Mm.
And if they do, they are 1 in a billion or whatever. So I don't know, maybe you can
Hmm.
just speak to that, why you think people's expectations might be that.
That's kind of a big question.
It is. We have 16 hours for this podcast, so I don't have to be on stage
I
tomorrow
don't
till
think it's a lack
10.
of time. That's my problem. But I mean, some thoughts that came to mind. Um, well, because you said you made the distinction yourself, like it's not necessarily about high expectations, it's very specific expectations. And it's like you're looking for someone so tailored to yourself. Um, and I think part of the situation with relationships and part of the reason people can also get into um, situations that they might regret and maybe they don't have to regret is because they're looking for like their soulmate, the person who matches them, the person who vibes with them, who has all of their qualifications met and that kind of thing. When like in reality, every person is going to be different in so many ways that you can't even anticipate. And from year to year, that's going to change. And like part of um part of being in a relationship is coming to like unity, but allowing the differences to thrive and like the things that I wouldn't choose for myself to be in you and vice versa. Like some sort obviously we're gonna have some things that we want to have actual sameness about, but the professor, I guess maybe he's just on my mind because whatever, but the professor I'm doing the class with, we were getting the certification for preparing, she's always talking about the goal is not is oneness, not sameness. And so to have this space within the relationships for your diversity and your I don't know, just the things that like make you such different people from the very time that you were born, like all of these different things that shape you, that is going to continue to exist. Just because you feel like you're vibing, you're not going to vibe forever. In this perfect, like in sync kind of way. Anyway, so I don't know if people kind of expect that relationships are made from that, like that specificity. I don't know. That's just a thought that came to mind because you mentioned like it's not that they have high expectations, it's that they're very specific
And unrealistic.
and unrealistic.
I wanna camp on that
Yeah,
word.
the
They're
unrealistic
unrealistic.
aspect because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, maybe you're just looking for like somebody who's so specifically incredible that they don't exist, but also they could just be so specific that they're going to be hard for you to find.
Mhm.
And that it's like, maybe you don't even want that. Like,
True. You
I
get
don't
to
know.
the pot of gold and realize
This is not,
it's just Lucky Charms.
what am I just going to have like the same type of person with me forever, but also then we're going to run into these surprise differences because, hey, we actually are very different.
And also, hypothetically speaking, somebody finds Mr. or Mrs. Hunk or whatever. How do you say that for females? Hunkess? Hunk and Hunkess. You find Hunk and Hunkess, zero guarantee they're going to be the same person 365 days
Oh, true.
after that happens.
Yeah.
Or a year, or 5 years, or 10 years, or whatever. They're bound to change because life changes us, and the person that you married is not necessarily the person you'll be married to 50 years. In 50 years. Not that you got divorced, but just that both people have changed so much that they are the same person, but have a very different belief set potentially, or express themselves
Just
very
live life,
differently.
like life shapes you, and
Yeah.
you have even like the fact that I live in the valley now means I feel like I'm a different person than I was when I lived in Dallas.
You know what a taco is now.
I now know what a taco is. And then yeah, so I guess I don't know if that answers the why did people, but I don't know, just
Yeah. I mean, if I'm gonna be grumpy theologian about it, I would say that it's
Oh, yeah.
the person centered on self, and
yes.
there is no higher end to marriage or to relationships.
Then
So everything is going to
yeah.
be turned inwards. How do I get the highest satisfaction?
Yes, thank
Well,
you
it's
for
with a
making that count.
person who looks like this. How do I
Mhm.
achieve the greatest amount of pleasure in this life? Well, it's being matched with someone like this and this who has the nice car and money and house and all of
Mhm.
those things. So I think that would be
For
part
sure.
of it. But
Yes.
you mentioned something about obviously you want to make sure that you have some things in common and some specificity. What are some lines that you would draw? Like these are things that we have to align on. Faith being the most obvious one.
Mhm.
It'll be hard for a Muslim and a devout Christian to be in marriage together, I think. So what are some
Yeah.
other ones apart from faith?
Well, I feel like that one is, I don't want to say it's the only important thing because I definitely don't think that's true, but I feel like it shapes so much of the other decisions that we make. Um, so in terms of like finances or raising children, but even in that, like, you're gonna meet people who are Christian who think differently about those things than you.
Right.
So yeah,
I would put family values in there.
yeah, I would put
Faith, family values, finances, I think.
I think too, like I know that we had not like so I wanted to be in an Anglican church and you really felt very triggered by that concept in the early days of
Triggered is a
Scarred.
is a strong word. Is a strong
I
word.
know it is.
I grew up okay, maybe it's not, but I don't know.
I don't
Triggered.
think I think you
I grew
told
up
me that.
I grew up Catholic, and I didn't like it. So anything that kind of resembled Catholicism, I was like, I don't know about this.
Because
So I
we
didn't
went
want to
to
go
we
there.
went to a service at my church
I remember.
and you were just like, I just couldn't even like go there.
Yeah,
And I
that's
was so
I just feel
I
like
respected
triggered.
that,
I just feel
but
like triggered.
okay,
Anyways,
maybe
continue, continue,
maybe it's a
continue.
trigger for me to use the word trigger.
It is definitely a
Okay.
trigger.
But so I know we didn't have like perfect accord on like exactly the church that we were going to be at, but I also kind of felt like, both of our decisions for now, like, let's see, I felt like we had enough accord about church in general, about what it's for, about what we hope it, like the kind of involvement we want to have in it. Um, and like what it is for a Christian, that I felt like I think it's gonna take some time for us to find our equilibrium about where we want to be. But I also feel like there's a place for us that we would both thrive. Like
Mm,
it didn't feel like that's just not even possible.
right.
Um, so even that, I don't know how to categorize that because it's
Yeah.
like it
Well,
was essential, but it was also like a process
right,
of gaining that like
right. We had I think the way I would say it is that we had alignment when it came to the the purpose of the church, the function of the church, whatever you want to call it. Our role as Christians to practice hospitality and welcoming those who don't know, our role in evangelizing and teaching, our role in being involved in serving unselfishly, and all of those kinds of things, that whether we agreed on the particular service structure at a church, like how many songs, how long is the sermon, chairs or pews, was all kind of peripheral because we agreed on the essentials of the faith and what that called us to. And like you said, eventually we would find an institution that
helped us moderate.
helped us moderate that and provided
Mhm.
avenues for us to practice that. But even if we didn't, we still have our home, we still have our relationship, we still have children. Right now we have two. One's in the belly still, in the womb. Sorry. We still can practice hospitality, we can still serve, we can do all sorts of things, even if the service structure, isn't completely what we would want.
I think too, there was a lot of agreement we had even about that, like what makes up specific like church practices, but we were more or less flexible on how we thought they should be played out. So like
Right.
you were more, I think you were more like giving in that area than I was at first. And I also feel like, again, that's a place where we've like processed into more of a chord where I feel like you've come a little bit more towards me and I've come a little bit more towards you. And where I feel like we can talk about things like, oh, I loved this, or I really, and we might naturally come into more like agreement just in our opinions about what happened in a given day or meeting or something. I don't know.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I remember one of the things that we disagreed on was I love hard rock, so I want the electric guitars and I want the guitar solos and I want the smashing cymbals and drums and I want the worship leader to jump off the stage into the crowd and crowd surf. No, the last one's a joke.
Exaggeration.
Yeah, no, the last one's a joke. I don't want that. Please don't do that. Any worship leader in the world, please. Unless it's part of like a April 1st, April Fool's joke on the pastor, then please go ahead. It'd be hilarious. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, but Darien likes more of like Gregorian chants for her worship, which to me sounds, I think I can appreciate it more now. But back then I would just be like, I cannot get into this. What? Um, so that was one of the things that we were like, I don't know if we agree with this, you know, or not agree with this. I don't know how we are gonna find alignment in this. So that was one of the things. And there was a lot of those
It was
kinds
like,
of
yeah, a
things.
kind of aesthetics situation that, yeah, maybe our differences kind of came down to some like
It's praxis.
aesthetics and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it was all praxis because it was our understanding was very similar. That's why I never felt unaligned. It was just, okay, well, how is that carried out? And how do we mediate those differences? Which I feel like the church we're at right now does a pretty good
It's
job
very
because
interesting.
they have a great band. They have the electric guitar solos that I love and the drums going,
It's
and it's
very
great,
peaceful at the same
but it
time.
is incredibly peaceful and you can be in your own corner and do your Gregorian chant and it's all good. But I don't know, there is a lot of like just peacefulness about it and it's not a
It's not
concert.
showy.
It's not showy at all, despite the musicians being incredible. It's not showy. Just a really, really sweet time. Really sweet time. Um, so yeah. So faith,
Yeah.
family values, finances.
I think I'm trying to think. I'm like, I feel like I should know specifically because of prepare and rich, but I need to review my notes. But there's like
We're all learning. We're all
the
learning. It's all good.
there's just I I don't know if this is what is the I don't know if this counts as an answer, but talking like the way that you talk to people and the way that you talk to each other.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, like you just shouldn't probably be in a relationship with somebody who's not willing to have a respectful conversation and
Yeah.
hold their emotions and, at least be committed to the process of learning how to hold their emotions in tact, or at least to channel them in an appropriate way for safe conversation and closeness that way.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to say I'm perfect at that. I'm just saying like that's very important. I don't know if that comes to a matter of agreement or what. I don't know how to categorize that, but it's quite integral,
Yeah.
or you are not going to get anywhere.
This is true.
So
You have a baby inside of you right now.
I do.
How long do you think a woman should get of maternal leave?
Oh my goodness.
This is not on our list. We've jumped all over the place at this point, and I told her we would, but she wanted a list to feel prepared, and I told her we probably won't even get through it, but that's fine. Anyways,
Feels like a silly question for somebody like me to answer, considering I stay at home anywho. But
yeah, but you know,
I mean,
you didn't last year when we had our first baby.
it's true.
She was out for maybe 3 months, and then she went right back to work part-time, but still had to work and do school. She did both, so
I think I was out for 8 weeks.
8 weeks, that's it? Oh, 2 months.
Yeah.
2 months.
Um,
But they
oh
would have given you
goodness.
more.
They would have been
Yeah.
fine, but it was more a matter of like,
We have
I
to pay
should
for your
just do
school.
this and we need to make some extra money.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah. So I I feel like I don't know how to talk about this because I feel like there's so many like there's economic and like legal things that I don't really know what I'm getting into when I'm saying this, but it sounds like
Dream, just
just
dream,
dream.
just dream.
I think that there are definitely some countries who a lot of women in the US envy because they provide ample, dare I say, humane time frames.
Humane is a good word for it, I think.
Okay, I think it's just such a tender and sensitive time, and like the workforce is just not like very generous towards that. I mean, in the US, I should say.
Mhm.
So I think I don't know. I'm not trying to sound like
I don't think you're gonna
a
offend
radical
anyone.
lady,
I don't think you're gonna offend anyone.
but I don't know, 6 months.
6 months, okay, that's fine.
I think in Canada, I believe my coworker said they had a whole year of paid. In Germany, they have a good amount of years, and your job is like perfectly safe. Like your position's not going anywhere. They get an interim and they say, we'll give you this amount of time. If you want to come back in this amount of time, you're welcome. So I just think that that feels so like understanding to motherhood and family, and even like there's the paternity leave situation that, I understand that. I feel like that's a little more complicated because, you know, I don't know. It's like, well, you're not the actual one having the baby, even though your life is totally up in upheaval. Your body isn't exactly healing. So it's like there's probably some more give for that, but I think it'd be very interesting and cool if there was some paternity leave involved in the US too. I don't know. I'm hesitant to give my opinions about things,
Okay, yeah, no.
but I do have them. I'm just scared to say some more details because I don't really know what they entail.
We're gonna get 25 views and they're all gonna be our friends, so it's all good, and if this does, it's not going to, but hypothetically, if it does go viral,
Uh, let my
there are
opinion be
people,
known.
there are people on the internet who say crazier things and no one bats an eye, so.
True.
So Darien is advocating for 6 months of maternal leave. Don't
Yeah.
crucify her.
Yeah, we're saying it's not enough for too much.
Yeah. Nancy Piercy, Miss Nancy, we are still waiting to get you scheduled, so just throwing that out there. Nancy Piercy says that one of the ways that companies and corporations show active dislove, I'll say dislove, I don't know if that's a word or not, but show active dislove to women is by not caring for them post-birth, with maternal leave and having the security to just take a long extended break, and that is a form of not loving women and not loving their bodies and not loving the calling that God has on them, the higher callings or whatever, and that is actually bad for society, and it is incentivized to not have children,
Right.
and not incentivized to have children. So society is working towards the end where there's less and less people having children, and not towards the end where there are growing populations, which I think the US right now is still below the rate of repopulation. So I think our population is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking every year for the past like 15 years or something like that, maybe 20, which is just fascinating. So anyways, you were saying?
Well, it incentivizes women to wait as long as possible because they need to build the security of their career, things
Right.
like that. And then that's also driving more ethically concerning ways to conceive.
Right.
So that's a whole
Yeah, and I think
conversation.
that's actually the point that Nancy Piercy was making. I think mine was more of a deduction from what she said, but the actual point she was making was, you who say, "Oh, I'm going to wait and get a job and I have to have my career in line so that I can have my finances in order, and I need to make sure that everything is set," and before you know it, you're 40 years old and you haven't moved on to that phase of your life, that's actually not taking care of yourself. That's not actually, it's working against, was kind of the point that she was making, and it's a form of not loving yourself. So
your body.
yeah, or honoring your body. The book is Love Thy Body,
Mhm.
and she was talking about this phenomenon where people are having children and getting married later and later and later, because they want the American dream before they have the kids and all of that. So that's what she was talking about more specifically.
Mhm.
Yeah. There was something that you said that I wanted to comment on, and like always,
No,
I have forgotten what it was. So
you need a little notebook.
honestly, I typically, you know what, I have one
Just
here.
pull it over.
Honestly, I usually do, and I take notes while people are talking so that I can remember to ask them things, but now I have it. So now we're all good. Okay, so 6 months?
I think 6 months would be a pretty awesome deal, at least for a lot of moms. I think some moms are ready. It's the kinds of moms that like to work after they have kids are might be like, yeah, I like that. And then the moms that aren't, well, then they have time to kind of sort things out. But I mean, more, I'd take more too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, cool. And certainly we're not advocating for marriage as the highest estate of human relationship in the unit. Well, I guess maybe we would, but we're not saying that that is how one is fulfilled or anything, because there's much to be said about having that single life and not being married and that being a gift from God as well.
Mhm.
So just because we're talking about relationships and love and marriage and stuff like that on Valentine's Day does not mean that we are purposely overlooking our brothers and sisters who are not married. So I just want that to be said because I know that that can be a sting in church where you feel like you're not seen. So
Maybe
just
we
wanted to
can-
point that out.
Yeah, maybe you can incorporate this into a later episode.
Yeah, a
More
singleness
excited
episode.
Conversation.
Yeah, maybe Ben Stewart. Ben Stewart, if you're watching this, I'd love to talk with you about singleness. Why is that funny? Ben Stewart might watch this.
You might-
He
yeah.
probably won't. Also, I challenged Matt Chandler to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match. So Matt Chandler, if you see this, I'm in your DMs and I'm waiting. Everyone's getting the shout outs today. Interesting. Don't leave me hanging, Matt. If anybody here knows Matt, just send him a text for me.
Mhm.
Tell him I want to roll. I'm a white belt too. So we'll be perfectly
For
even.
long.
So what makes a good marriage, Darien, from your opinion? In your opinion?
I don't have opinions about this. I only have scientific facts.
Okay, give me your scientific facts about what makes for a good marriage.
Don't listen to me.
Go ahead.
This just feels like too much of a big question for me.
Well, you know,
I
bite
kind
by
of feel
bite.
like I also talked about it a little bit in terms of the key points of like agreement and things like that.
Mhm.
But I mean, overall, I think healthy communication and open communication. I think emotional security. I think having something outside of yourselves that you're working for. So whether like I think for believers, that's obviously like the concept of the what is it? The chord of three strings is not easily broken, or I don't know if that's the way it's worded, but you know, like if we're we're doing this for more than ourselves, or we're building a family to convey God's blessing to the world around us, like I think having some sort of outside impetus is like, I don't know, that just seems very important. And that's not just me, I guess, in my opining, but you know, things that I've heard slash read.
How does one practice healthy communication? That was one of the pillars that you mentioned.
Mhm.
How does one practice that, or what can that look like?
Don't you remember?
Yeah, but this is your interview, so you're on the hot seat. I'm just facilitating questions.
Oh no. Okay. So a huge part would be, dang, I should have my little notes here myself. You didn't let me bring my notes, but safe conflict conversations are very important because they can, you know, drive people away from each other if they're not safe. This is very badly worded. I'm really feeling on the spot here, but I feel like I'm supposed to know this because I was just studying it, but I'm really stressed out. So
I mean, you don't
um,
have to go with your notebook, just even from your
Yeah.
experience.
yeah, well, I think okay, yeah. So the key aspects of communication that make it safer are, well, active listening, not interrupting.
What is active listening?
Active listening would be somebody is looking you in the eyeballs and tracking you, and after, you know, a certain amount of speaking, they're able to kind of reflect accurately what the other person is saying by like paraphrasing in their own words. And then there can be like non-defensive exchange in that, and just saying the only goal in these conversations is to understand, not to actually argue or anything. And then get all the understanding as thorough as possible first. And then to move on to then actual negotiations and basically creating the space for safety and empathy and understanding each other, so you're not like putting each other in a box or making assumptions about what this other person's thinking or filling in the blanks on your own, but you're asking clarifying questions and yeah, just a quality conversation.
Okay, so active listening.
As I said, the reflection.
Mhm.
And then, well, what I think those are kind of like really big parts of the conflict conversation that kind of make the environment what it's supposed to be and make room for brainstorming solutions, negotiating, and coming to some sort of resolution.
Okay. What about non-conflict related healthy communication?
Well, one of the favorite things I learned in one of my first classes was about John Gottman's I guess vocabulary about how we respond to each other. And he was saying we as people in relationship make bids for attention to each other. So whether it's you and your child, you and your friend, you and your spouse, we're gonna say something like, imagine sitting at breakfast one morning, we're both sipping on orange juice, and then I say, so good, this orange juice. And you just look at me and turn away. That I made the bid for attention and you turned away and you said, that's
Or in the
very
morning when I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, what is happening around my waist?
Mhm.
Yeah, I get you.
And then what?
Well, hopefully
That's a bid for attention.
that's a bid
and
for
I can
attention.
say to you, babe, you look so handsome. Just stop.
Which is not what happens. Not what happens. Something about blubbery man, and I don't.
Oh my goodness.
Just kidding.
He's lying.
I am. I just said that.
So anyway, there's different ways that like little tiny aspects of our day that we build into each other's like sense of safety and security and belonging. Anyway, those are some things. I'm sorry, they're a little vague.
That's okay. Thanks for sharing. Okay, why did you decide to pursue a counseling degree?
There are a couple reasons. The first, as I mentioned earlier, I studied philosophy in my undergraduate degree, and I kind of did that with the hopes of getting my master's and my PhD in philosophy. And I don't know, I did that really without having much exposure to philosophy. I really enjoyed all the classes, the professors, like the reading. I felt like I was thriving in that. But to go that distance in philosophy, you really have to be obsessed and kind of make it your entire life and personality. And I did really enjoy it. But while I was writing my senior thesis, it kind of dawned on me in a more final way that I was like, I don't think I can do this like in the most intense academic way. Just writing this undergraduate level paper that was more than I had done before for my other philosophy courses themselves. Like it was just like, oh my goodness, I can't make this my entire life forever. So I was looking for other options that would help me kind of use the things I appreciated about philosophy and the degree I was getting in more an accessible and like real world environment. So one of the options was classical education, which really intimidated me for some reason. I don't know, being a teacher is terrifying to me. So I ruled it out as more, well, I put it on the back burner as like last resort. And then it occurred to me that counseling might be a good fit. I had been in counseling with my family in high school and had kind of continued on some level during college and had just been a big gift to us. I loved our counselor so much, and I just thought if I could do that, and kind of be that, I don't know, support in somebody else's life or somebody else's family, that would be really cool. And also I felt like I had specific, like, I guess, aptitude for it in terms of like I loved to find order and kind of understand, the more hidden story of things and like just kind of be patient and with that. And I think a lot of the growth that awaited me was more relational than I started off with the impression it was more clinical. And I think at DTS it definitely revealed that there was a lot more relational growth that needed to occur and like just kind of the way that you are with people. And that was very good. And I didn't expect it as much as I should have, I guess. But so I think, yeah, I started off with more clinical like stance, and then that has evolved in many ways since I got to DTS. But those are the two initial reasons.
Yeah, and if you're talking to Christians who already have a pastor, why should they maybe see a professional counselor as well?
I mean, I think part of it has to do with the actual issues that you're trying to address in your goals. I think for a lot of pastors, they have a lot on their plates, and that pastoring people and shepherding is definitely a big part of that. But I wonder if it's realistic. I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know if I've been in a setting that it has been, for somebody to kind of walk it intensively through um, personal growth and some even spiritual growth problems or issues like for 3 months or 5 months or a year weekly, things that like you're a professional provider would um, obviously have more. That is their job. That's what they do all day. And they're not going to be having to kind of divide between sermon prep and elder meetings or just like church logistics and things like that. But also I think part of it is just the fact that like, I don't know, I think there are a lot of pastors who've seen a lot and gotten to deal with a lot, and they have a lot of like pastoral experience. And then at the same time, even then, like having the people who have kind of been exposed even to I don't know, I can't say what pastors have been exposed to or not, but I think something about the professional training and um there's so much supervision, there's so much reading. Um there are obviously many hours of coursework and um so I think and exposure to different sorts of issues that make a professional counselor probably a wise decision in some set in some for some people with certain goals. I don't know. It's hard to know based pastor to pastor kind of what their gifts and strengths are going to be. So maybe it would be wise to kind of have an initial meeting with the pastor and see kind of what their um experience range is and like what they're comfortable with, kind of what their philosophy is of counseling. I think some things with pastoral counselors or like actual pastors who are counseling, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It might be something that you want, but they might be more directive and they might be more um, um, in your face about like certain guidance. And I think sometimes with in like the more professional counseling setting, the the rules of the game are different. So that it's honestly like most counselors aren't going to give you actual advice. They're not going to give you literal counsel, word, like words of things that you should go do. Um, so it depends on what you're looking for. The rules of the game are different. And if you're looking for maybe like a more long-term slow saturation, kind of like with somebody who's going to kind of be walking by your side, kind of letting you be on your own agenda, and learning that agenda with you thoroughly, and with a lot of expertise kind of guiding you through that agenda. That might be a better place for a counselor, but it really depends on your pastor and what you know about him and like what he's been up to, you know. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And then, how much, if at all, does your faith influence your counseling practice?
This is good timing because we were just talking about this in my practicum class. And I feel like explicitly that will vary depending on the client. There's usually an intake, we can ask clients like their religious background and kind of the degree that they want that to inform like their counseling going forward. And as a Christian, counseling a Christian, I would probably be able to, well, I should say I would definitely be able to use more of my Christian background in like biblical truth explicitly. But even then, it's kind of, again, the rules of the game are you ask if that's something that they're up for and if that's something that they want to influence that, because you don't really know where everybody is in their walk, or how they really identify what being a Christian is. So, but as like a counselor, just on my own, it's going to affect pretty much like the entire foundation of what I'm doing, how I understand human nature, how I understand the condition of the world and people, like why things are broken, kind of where we're going, the source of true hope, that kind of thing. And I was thinking about it. Well, every semester we have to, not every semester, but every theology class, we have to write this long paper. And part of it is how this particular aspect of theology that we're talking about in a given semester relates to our future ministry context or our current ministry context. And it's always interesting to kind of like reflect on that, because each like theological point is just like, oh, this is super influential about the way that I view like what's going on in the world. And I'm not going to see you know um I'm not going to see somebody's hope in a place other than like truly the full redemption of the world. And that's not something I have to say out loud to say, you know, to be able to like actually try to move them in the direction of like there's true hope. Like we're gonna get there in all these sorts of ways that may or may not, that you may or may not explicitly understand have to do with Christ and like what he's doing, but that I understand these small hopes that we can have right now as hints of that future redemption and that future grace that we're all like getting to experience just by the general grace of God. So, or like for instance, last semester we did uh I don't the class on the fall, like sin, angels, demons, the nature of humanity, and that included like the topic of death, which was super timely as I am this semester working at a bereavement center for children. And like, I don't think that there's anything worse for a grieving person than to have like an understated view of what just happened to them, like in a death. And the biblical like and theological story of what death is, like understanding it in its deepest tragedy, um, it doesn't really leave you room as a person to like, as a Christian, to like undermine what a grieving person who just lost somebody from death like is experiencing. So I think, wow, that's pretty interesting. I don't know, I didn't expect to come away with such like applicable and even like something that I think a lot of Christians are accused of is like maybe underrating death a little bit. And the world definitely doesn't understand as the spiritual tragedy that it is. So kind of being able to I think absorb at least as much as I'm able to as a human, like what death is, will bring me to a better place of compassion and empathy. So things like that, it kind of infuses like what I'm doing as a person, how I'm thinking and feeling and responding to people. Just because of that's what I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When this is random, I just thought of it. When do you think that counseling kind of like really took off, you know? Because you hear talks a lot about, oh, it was so taboo back in the day and it was shameful, and now it's like live, laugh, love, coffee counsel. And it's like this is mainstream thing that people are so glad to share. You know, you see it
My
on
therapist,
yeah, my therapist said. So when do you think that happened, if you know, or what do you think caused it even? I don't know if maybe you guys have discussed that in your classes.
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think I'd like to ask one of my professors that, like, probably my practicum one, because he's been in the business a long time. And I honestly, but I don't know the answer. I feel like it happened as I'm growing up in it, so it's kind of hard to identify. Yeah. Uh-oh, our baby's crying.
Yeah, our baby's crying.
But I think it's definitely been an interesting thing to see, at least in the past 5 years, as I've been in more of an aware space, and it sometimes causes me cringe because I'm like, oh no, my almost feeling like my field is being trivialized on some level, and like it's hard for me to sometimes even admit because I don't want people to just assume I'm like, I don't even know. I'm gonna tell them trivial things about and how I'm distracted by the baby.
That's okay. We can pause it and then just come back to it in a little bit. So I'll just put pause real quick and make sure that he's okay. Hey guys, our baby is okay. He was asleep and then he wasn't and screaming. So it's like 10:37 p.m. right now. So anyways, we were about to finish, but I had another question.
I can finish answering this one real quick.
Oh, I don't know.
The one we were in the middle of.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying I think the rise of popular therapy, at least the way I felt it in my tenure as a student, has been increasingly like a little dreadful because because the way it kind of promotes like the trivial versions of therapy where it's the ones that kind of people make fun of, or even like I think it maybe goes back to the what we were talking about at the very beginning, where it's very like individualistic and just finding yourself, and I mean, kind of the more shallow versions of self-help, which it's like I think that a there's it's not all bad to get to know yourself better and understand yourself and your weaknesses and your strengths, and to be a good support to yourself, because like realistically, like we need to do that for ourselves, right? As people, um, we can't rely on everybody else for everything, but it's also sometimes just feels like, oh no, all of the stereotypes that make some people hesitate to go. Like, I feel like for you, you will make fun of it sometimes because of these very things. It's like, and so as it's getting popular, the stereotype is even getting stronger in some ways, pushing other people away for good reason when there's really also great therapy going on. So that was just my thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people will never ever go see a counselor because they think it's weird or annoying or
Cheesy.
too mainstream or cheesy or whatever reason. So how can we as individuals not be people's counselor, um, but when they don't go to a counselor and come to us instead, how can we be good stewards of that responsibility?
I think learning how to listen, uh, and listen like for really clear understanding, to ask good clarifying questions, and to be able to reflect the ideas and emotions that people are sharing with you. Just we're not interrupting, we're not giving advice, we're just kind of sitting with people and like really letting them like be with us and be heard and be supported. Not rushing to comment, not rushing to say, this is what I think you should do, or oh, this is what happened to me once too, or things like that. I think they're very common, like human responses. I think like we just have these gut reactions. We're in conversation, we're not necessarily thinking, I need to care for this person in a deep way. We're just relating on a pretty basic level, but I think the next or few below down level, I don't know, of depth really requires that like slowing down, being there for that person. Yeah, I think it's definitely a skill to learn and to practice. Like it doesn't come just like as an instinct, and it can be really awkward at first to practice, just to literally just say back to that person in different words what you heard them say, or to tell them it's, or like, I see you're feeling X, Y, or Z, or it can sound really awkward at first, and I still feel awkward sometimes doing it, but it's just something that you gotta learn, and that, yeah, anybody technically can do it. And so if your friend is coming to you with like something grave, or just something that really means something to them, like that's, you can pretty much bet that's going to be really encouraging to them. And sometimes they're going to ask for advice, and in that case, proceed with caution. Give some advice. You can share your thoughts, but even to like withhold judgment for as long as possible, and to not even like make your opinion in your head. Sometimes we're just going to have the guts and the instincts of what you think, but part of that practice of listening is really just listening for understanding. So pre-judgment. And it's hard, but it's really freeing to that other person and to you to relate to them in a really authentic way, and to give them that clear support. So yeah.
Yeah, no, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think we'll go ahead and end it here. Do you have any closing statements or anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Not yet, I don't.
Okay, well, fantastic. This has been my hottest interviewee yet. So my wife, Darien Peña, habits.
He always forgets.
I don't forget, just habits. So there we go. Bye, guys.